Hey, so today I wanted to show you about triad pairs on the guitar and how Trey uses them in about 5 different Phish songs, both in composition, and then I'm going to show you how to use them in a solo sense, in an improvisational sense, which is the more common way people think about triad pairs. When you get a second, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications for further videos. If you want to check out my Patreon, you can support us that way. And if you have any interest in taking one-on-one Zoom guitar lessons with me, don't hesitate to give me a call. All that info will be in the description of this video below. So what's the theory behind a triad pair? Let's get into that a little bit. So the definition of a triad pair is basically two chords, that you play two chords that don't have any repeating common tones or any repeating notes. So for instance, and I'll pull up this PDF here. If we're in the key of G major, here's all your diatonic triads. G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and G major, right? So instead of playing that all the way up the neck like these kind of triads, right, you can pick two chords that don't share any of the same notes. And you'll see here on this PDF, I picked just the first two of a larger PDF, which is available on the Patreon if you want to check that out, where we're taking the 1 and the 2 chord, and then the 1 and the 7th chord. So let's start with the 1 and the 2 chord. We have the G major, which has the notes G, B, and D. And then we have the chord A minor, which has the notes A, C, and E. So you might think, okay, that's the 1, 3, 5, and the 2, 4, 6 of the G major scale, and you wouldn't be wrong. That is correct. But the idea here is to combine those two, either playing them up the neck in triads with all their inversions like this, which gets you to break out of the box of just playing right up and down the scale. Now you're playing just with two sets of notes or two chords, which has kind of a more melodic sound in a way. It doesn't sound as scale-based, as stepwise, going right up and down the scale. The other really cool thing about triad pairs, when you combine those notes, say the 1, 3, 5, and the 2, 4, 6, and this is just one example, obviously we'll do this with the 1 and the 7 in just a second, you get a new scale. It's not a 7-note scale, which would be a septatonic scale, 7-note scale. We get a hexatonic scale. So if you combine 1, 3, 5, and 2, 4, 6, you're really just getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So you have basically the major scale. And you don't play the F sharp, which you would normally anticipate playing in G Ionian or G major. We're actually omitting that note or leaving it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Right now, when we play that 6 to 1, we have a leap, which is anything greater than a step. So that means a minor third up to an octave or even higher if you think about extensions. And what happens when we play that leap, a third or greater, we get more of a sense of melody. Think about Bach. If you know anything about Bach, with counterpoint, the harmony we like is a lot of 3s and 6s. That's like pretty much all 3s and 6s in that little Bach piece that I've memorized from college. Now, if we combine those chords, we get that hexatonic scale, and there's that leap between the 6 and the 1. Which is kind of similar to major pentatonic scale, which goes 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. But in here, we want the 4 as well. Pentatonic, hexatonic, and then septatonic would be a 7-note scale there. So let's move to the G major and the F sharp diminished chord, which is going to kick us back a chord. Instead of going from the 1 to the 2 chord, G major to A minor, we're going to go from the G major to the F sharp diminished. Now we've got G, B, D, and F sharp, A, and C. Notice no repeating notes in there, right? And that becomes our new triad pair, right? Let's see if I can play this. I haven't memorized all these. Some really cool sounds in there. And here's something I didn't mention about the theory of triad pairs. So when you're playing in the major scale or any of the modes of the major scale, the two triad pairs you pick have to be adjacent, either like a 1 to 2 or a 1 to 7 or a 4 to 5 or a 4 to 3 or a 6 to 7 or a 6 to 5. Any other combination of chords that aren't adjacent, you'll have repeating notes. So technically they aren't triad pairs. Now, you can have triad pairs that are not in the major scale. You could do them in harmonic minor or jazz melodic minor, or take a stab at some chromatic outside of the key, a different scale or a different key, and you can come up with some cool sounds. For this video, we just wanted to stay diatonic as an introduction to here are triad pairs, and it's a good way to play solos differently, learn your triads and their inversions up the neck, 2 chords at a time, which gets you really good at those inversions just in that vacuum of 2 chords. So here's the hexatonic scale of the G major and F sharp diminished. We have our 1, 3, 5 and our 7, 2, 4. Notice how it's really similar. Obviously, it's just one note dropped from the major scale. So we're going to play our G, A, B, C, D, F sharp. Now we have that third leap from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the 6th note, which happens to be the major 7th in the major scale. If your tonal center is above those 2 chords in the triad pair, your leap of the third will be between the 5th note and the 6th note, which happens to be, in this case, the perfect 5th and the major 7th. Now, if your tonal center is the bottom chord, in this case, G major to A minor, and we play, the leap of the third will be between your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, back to 1. So you still get that really beautiful melodic sound of a major third or minor third, depending on what your triad pair is, if you're having your tonal center chord as the bottom chord or the top chord. All right, let's look at some triad pairs in some Phish songs. Okay, so the first Phish song that came to mind was the song Free. It's not all triad pairs, but there's a couple sets of them inside that opening lick. Right, we have a D major over F sharp. That's an inversion. Good little shape to learn there. Now that same inversion goes down from D major over F sharp to C major over E. Now in the key of G, which this song is technically in, but the tonal center is D mixolydian. Right, you have a 5 going down to a 4 in the key of G, or a 1 down to a flat 7. Let's call it a D major over F sharp going down to a C over E. That's an adjacent chord that doesn't share any of the same common tones. So that's an example of a triad pair. Next is the E minor. Notice how he arpeggiates those chords there. We have E, G, B, and then D, F sharp, A. So it's an E minor, which is the 2 chord of the D major being the 1 chord in D mixolydian. That G major is the exception. That's just a bona fide 4 to 1 in the key of D or D mixolydian. So that's actually not a triad pair. So you have that D to C and then E minor to D. Those are 2 triad pairs going 1 to 7 and then 2 to 1, thinking in the terms of D tonal center, and then your G to D, which is not a triad pair. Now some people will say you can break the rule of using triad pairs and have a note that is a common tone, maybe 1 common tone. Now in the case of the song My Friend, one of my favorite compositions, Trey uses these inversions, and it's really just a lesson to help you get good at your inversions up and down the neck. These are all 3rd string root shapes. If we go D over F sharp, G over D, D major, G over B, and then back to D major. You're really going, and again, there's a repeating note of a D in both the G major triad and the D major triad. So not a true triad pair, but some people say you can break the rule there. But you're going 1st inversion, 2nd inversion, root position, 1st inversion, 2nd inversion, unless you play that open D string. The next couple Phish songs that share the same relationship of a major chord going down a whole step to a major chord are either Meat Stick, so you could arpeggiate those in a solo, and it'll have a nice effect as opposed to going right up and down the scale. Now, a song that uses the same relative chord progression is Gotta Jaboo. And let's look at this PDF here with Gotta Jaboo. This time it goes E down to D major, and that's it. A whole step apart. You could think that's in the key of A major, but it's really the tonal center of E mixolydian going down to D major. Those are our triad pair right there. And if we combine, there's your arpeggio. It'd be a fun way to solo. There's a few different ways you can now improvise using triad pairs. I'm going to start with some inversions on a couple different string sets. Let's start with the A string here. Let's go here on the 5th string. Now arpeggiate. Right, so that way you can arpeggiate. Let's do it on another string set. Let's say the 4th string. While we're at it, we might as well do it on the 3rd string too. Never mind that last little lick that I did at the end there. Okay, so that was showing you how to arpeggiate those basic triads. What if we combine them to make our hexatonic scale, the 6-note scale here, playing 1, 3, 5 and flat 7, 2, 4. But let's make it into a cohesive scale. So let's look at the PDF here. We got 7, 9, 6, 7, 9, 7, 9. Now this is one of those ones where the tonal center chord of the triad pair is above, right? Because they always have to be adjacent for them to be truly triad pairs with no common tones. That means the 3rd melodic leap is between the 5th note and the 6th note. And it sounds almost kind of exotic in a way. It's really beautiful. I'm going to improvise with that scale a little bit here. And you could think of it as, hey, that's just mixolydian without that major 6. And it's okay to think of it that way. It's just another method of getting to the same answer. It's either a triad pair creating a hexatonic scale, or the wormhole is mixolydian with no 6. All right, let's try to improvise using that mixolydian no 6 or that hexatonic scale. Okay, and the final instance that I found, which I'm sure there's a ton out there, is the bridge in Wolfman's Brother, where they play a G minor to an A flat major. Sounds like the intro, but smooth atonal sound, right? That bridge section. And they don't take a solo on it, but I'm going to, just to show you that you can do this without 2 major chords going back a whole step. This is a minor chord, G minor, going to A flat major. Now technically that puts us in the key of E flat major. Again, our tonal center, jam band, modern music, is B flat mixolydian. Now we're going to play our arpeggios here. And one more thing, this is an instance where the tonal center, in this case G minor, is the bottom chord of your triad pair. So that means your leap of a 3rd, your melodic leap of a 3rd, will be from the 6th note in the scale, the final note of the scale, back to the root. That will be your leap of a 3rd. So we're going to go 5, 8, 7 and 6, 5, 8. Some people will think of that as the Neapolitan 6th chord, even though it's not in 1st inversion for all of you classical people out there. It's basically just a major chord a half step below your 1 chord, if that's your 1 chord. And again, we're extracting these 2 chords from the bridge and from the whole song as if it were its own chord progression or if it was its own jam section. All right, so there's our arpeggio. And you can arpeggiate with all those inversions like I showed you all the way up the neck. Then you can go to your hexatonic scale, which I'm just going to move along and go to that. Which there's some more of that kind of exotic sound from that 3rd. Also, it sounds a bit exotic because of that flat 2. Now, the entire makeup of this hexatonic scale goes 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, 1, right? So there's no 7 in this one. We have that leap of a third from 6 to 1, which is a major third. I got a little loop here of that G minor to A flat. Let's play a little jam on top of that using this hexatonic scale. Yes, you could call it Phrygian without the flat 6. Sorry, without the flat 7. Anyway, I hope that was a helpful explanation about what triad pairs are, how you can use them either in composition, decoding other people's music, or how to improvise, which is what I think how most people use them. And also, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Send me an email, give me a call if you're interested in those lessons. And yeah, thanks for watching. Take care.